I bought a beautiful flat of succulents, as you can see right here from Mountain Crest Gardens, and I've been watering the whole flat at the same time. So every pot in there is getting water at the same time. Some of them are good and some of them are not. So even though they're all the same variety, you can see this one's has some problems. Even though they're the same variety, they are not all surviving well. And so this just goes to show that just because two succulents are the exact same kind doesn't mean that they are going to need the exact same amount of water. So these have been in the same place, watered the same frequency, the same depth, and this one is struggling. So let me show you close up what that looks like. Okay, so first up, I told you they're all the same variety. I guess that's not entirely true for the tray. So we have echeverias, some crassulas, sedums, another echeveria, and more crassulas. Now, all of these are the same variety, and I can't remember what kind, but they're an echeveria. They've all been under the same amount of light, and they've been watered the same frequency. But look at what happened with this one. And I went to water it, actually, and pull it out, and that's when I saw all of these nasty leaves and the blackness. Now, it's really hard to save an overwatered succulent, especially when there's not a lot of healthy growth. So you can see there's a little bit of healthy stem here still. I'm just gonna let this thing dry out. I'm not even sure if chopping off the top is going to help me at this point. I probably need to at some point, but I'm just gonna let it be for a while. And you can see these leaves are just, they fall off just with a very slight touch because that is so damaged. So that one was overwatered, and these are all stretched out. They weren't getting enough water for a little while, or sorry, they weren't getting enough light for a little while. This one though, you can see the stem is super healthy, and I don't see any signs of problems of overwatering on this one. Again, exact same succulents in the same location with the same watering frequency, and a very, very different result. So the interesting thing is I haven't seen any of these other four that look like they're rotting. Now, I've been bottom watering them, which means all of them are getting water at the same rate. So they're sitting in water, and so it should like soak up into all of them. So no one pot is getting more water than the other. But the thing that's interesting about this is early on I could tell it was starting to have some problems because some of these, there we go, some of these leaves started turning yellow. Now, in the description, I will have a link where you can get a free cheat sheet that has signs that your succulent needs water or that it's getting too much water. So a lot of times that's a problem for new succulent growers, and honestly, for some more advanced succulent growers too, is noticing the early signs that something is wrong. Now, these other leaves that are on here, you can see I'm just gently tapping them, and a lot of them are staying on, the ones that are up here at the top. That one's not. These leaves will likely not propagate because they have already been overwatered. You can see how it's kind of translucent here at the end. That's not always a sign that it won't propagate, but knowing that this has been underwatered, I'm taking it as a sign that it's probably not going to propagate, so I'll probably just toss them. So for this one, I think I'll be able to save it. And what I need to do is just cut off right here. So let me show you what that looks like. Now, for this to even have a chance at working, you need to have a fair amount of stem right here. And up close on the phone, this looks like it's a lot. It's really not. You can see it's not, it's barely even like a fingernail size. So you're gonna wanna cut above the damage and above like the little leaf node there. So I think I'm gonna just chop it right here. This is not a good sign. Okay, do you see how there's black in there? That means the rot has gone all the way into the stem up to this point. I really don't have any more that I can cut off. So what I'm going to do though, I'm gonna toss this section because there's no way anything's coming back from that. And I'm gonna let this part dry. So normally, if this had happened, you'd let it dry and then you would set it on top of soil and just keep the soil damp for a couple days, and then it'll start putting off roots. And I actually have one that I have done that with. So right next to these, I have this Echeveria Lola, and you can see it was cut off and it has some roots. Now you might say, well, Cassidy, that one is black on the bottom. It is, and actually I'm a little surprised that it has grown roots because it was kind of black at the bottom. And part of that is because after I cut it, I didn't let it dry out all the way before sticking it on wet soil, and it ended up actually getting some mold on it. But now it does have some new roots growing, and my preference, I'm testing this one to see if it works. My preference is actually to put these on top of coconut coir instead of the gritty mix. So I would normally do gritty mix like this and then coconut coir on top of it, so that it would look something like this. Actually, you can see one right here that I did this with. So that's coconut coir on top of a gritty mix. That way, that soil on top, this coconut coir, can stay wet for longer, and then it has a really nice gritty soil that it can grow in afterward. So the tricky thing is the Bonsai Jack soil, or the gritty mix, doesn't hold water for a super long time, which is great for larger succulents, less great for new cuttings that need a little bit more water. So this one has been sitting here for weeks. It doesn't have enough of a stem, and frankly, it doesn't have very many roots to pull from, or excuse me, it doesn't have very many leaves to pull from. So the combination of not having water around it and then also not having a lot of storage in the leaves or stem is making it hard for it to actually grow. But it's staying here and it is getting some roots, so we're going to see what happens. So learn from this and start to recognize those early signs that your succulent needs or does not need water. Always err on the side of underwatering your succulents because it's so much easier to revive them. And then I also highly recommend recording when you water using something like the Succulent Tracker app. That way you know what your watering frequency has been, so you know if it's too much or too little, and you can make adjustments from there. And then the last thing that we learned is not all succulents are the same. Even if you have the same variety in the same type of pot, same type of soil, same location, same watering frequency, some of them are just not going to survive the same way that the others do. So you have to pay attention to each of your succulents individually. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, share it with all of your succulent loving friends, and I will see you next time.